Hey everybody. Hi my friends.
Hey, João. Hi, Chris.
Hi, 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 everyone.
So we're here today to start our new book, The Messengers. We're very excited about this book. As we said before, we're gonna go through a couple of Andre Luis psychographed books by Chico Xavier. And we're here today to have this new beginning with this book. We wish everybody that's listening, watching us by Cardiac Radio's YouTube or Facebook a Happy New Year. This is the very first time that we get together in this 2022 year, and we're very happy and excited to start this new study. So before we go through the book, Nora will introduce us with a prayer, and after that, we're gonna start studying.
All right. Let us close our eyes. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you so much for this beautiful study together for our brother Chris and João, and for anyone who is here live on demand. That you give us lots and lots of drops of enlightenment, and that we can leave with a beautiful message, and our mentors guide us this evening. With that, we will say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. So be it, and we ask permission to begin.
Thank you, dear. So, no wasting of time, we're gonna start this new book.
It's nice
The
to
book is called.
Hi, Vanessa.
Vanessa's here.
I see a message there.
Okay, I can see the messages. So we're gonna start the book. The book is called The Messengers, and the preface is called as well The Messengers. The preface was written by Emmanuel in February 26, 1944. How long ago? The book begins with a very important affirmation, which is this book describes some of the experiences of messengers from the spirit world. A very important thing here in the preface is the information that this book is a partial account of 1 week of spiritual work by messengers of the good as they work alongside incarnate humans. And it goes on telling us that we must realize that the ordinary event of physical death does not enable discarnate humans to suddenly enter the realms of the angels. On the contrary, they continue to face their own conscience, struggling to lighten their minds, and in a different vibrational sphere. They prepare to continue their journey toward perfection. So this book, an amazing thing that we see right at the beginning is that this book, this huge book, this amount of lessons is actually the related of 1 week of Andre Luis working with this new instructor. Do you guys wanna say something? Can I?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
This is it's
Up.
just gonna be fun because this is him already a little bit more evolved, and so we can see
Yes.
that comparing to the first book. It's very
Yes.
exciting.
It's very nice. And we have, before entering chapter 1, a very nice message from Emmanuel, another lesson, when he tells us this. Above all, remember that these uplifting messages from the beyond are not meant to be a mere expression of emotion. They are intended primarily for your understanding as a child of God so that you will take inventory of your own accomplishments and truly hand yourself over to the responsibility of living in the presence of the Lord. This book, this preface, and the first chapters, it really shows us that working and serving in terms of loving is a really important task. And that's why we're here on earth. So we enter chapter 1, which is called Renewal. This chapter begins with Andre Luis telling us about how his mind changing process was being. As Nora said, this chapter begins with him telling us that he had left all those materialistic thoughts behind, that he has started to the nutrition of new thoughts towards his family, that he was seeing and admitting new things towards spiritual life and towards himself. First, he tells us that his change was not out of sudden. It was a long process that demanded loads of painful experiences. This is very nice. He starts saying this. Then he says this: after having been compelled to destroy my castles of unwarranted exclusivity, I felt a different kind of love settling into my soul. And he completes, only now did I realize how far removed I had lived from the sublime laws that govern human evolution. And he also says this: the simplest elements had begun to take an extraordinary meaning. The rustling of a bird's wings, the whisper of the wind, the light of the sun seemed to reach into his soul, filling his thoughts with wondrous harmony. So we do see a new André Luiz here, contemplating divinity, contemplating all the beauty. And a nice thing that he tells us, and he started is that he started to see Nosso Lar as a whole different place, and he was different as well. At this point of chapter 1, we have Narcisia telling more about the path this book will open to us. She tells this: André, you have worked long enough here in the chambers. I have been preparing myself here for my next life in the flesh. So I will not be able to accompany you, but I believe you should take advantage of the new service courses at the Ministry of Communication. So we see that at this book, André Luiz will be doing different things. Many of our co-workers have been trained to lend aid down on the earth within the realms that are both visible and invisible to incarnates, and all of them are supervised by worthy instructors. And in this book, we'll know one of those instructors, which is Anicero. So by the preface and chapter 1, we see that this book will not be placed in Nosso Lar. They will come to the sphere more close to the earth. And then we enter chapter 2, which has the style Anicero, that is the instructor. André Luiz tells Tobias that he was having another plans, and we see Tobias telling him that Anicero is a qualified instructor in communication, and Tobias takes André to meet Anicero. A funny thing that I found in this part is that the first observation that André Luiz made was that, unlike Tobias, Anicero was not married to anyone in Nosso Lar. This is very funny because we saw how shocked he got when he discovered that Tobias had been living with 2 wives that he had in the planet. Anicero accepted André Luiz in his team, and they agreed to see each other the next day in the messenger center. This chapter is very short. And then we enter chapter 3, which is called At the Messenger Center. Do you guys want to say something before I go in? Can I?
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's nice to say that the Messenger Center is localized in the Ministry of Communication. And at this point, we receive an explanation about what is the Messenger Center. The center, Tobias is explaining, the center trains spirits to become living letters of rescue and assistance to other spirits who are suffering in the umbral, on Earth's surface, and in the darkness, as we've seen before, darkness is actually a more dark place, a darker place, a worse place. And we, going through the book, not so long, we saw that the umbral is actually not the worst atmosphere in terms of spirituality that a spirit can go. And in this explanation, Tobias brings us a very important lesson. He says, real service is not just an idea. It involves effort without which the work can neither begin nor prevail. Another very important lesson is when he says, because we are almost always still linked to a long story of horrible wrongdoings that have deformed our personalities, few of us succeed in each new life incarnate endeavor. A nice thing that we see in those first chapters of this book is that I can't put it in percentage, but the most part of spirits that try some mission here on earth, they fail, because being here, and we were talking about almost 100 years ago, is very difficult. Another very important lesson is when they start talking there, and we see Tobias finding Aniceto in the messenger center, and he says, Andrea will be under my care from now on. Go back in peace. So we see Andrea Luis going to one instructor to another. And from now on in this book, we're going to see this amazing man called Aniceto, introducing Andrea Luis to new lessons and teachings. And to finish this chapter, we see Aniceto explaining to Andrea that he would put Andrea together with another medical trainee called Vicente because of their professional affinity. We will start having news about this other doctor called Vicente. And then we enter chapter 4, which is called Vicente's story. Andrea Luis says that he couldn't express how happy he was with this newfound friendship. I find this very cute. Vicente's story is very interesting. First, he heard Andrea Luis telling his story, and then he started telling his own. He told that his wife killed him because she was in love with Vicente's own brother. And she infected him with a bacteria while he was sleeping, and he died shortly after that. I think the most beautiful thing is that he is explaining this to Andrea Luis in a very, very calm way. And another nice thing is that he says that until that moment, those criminals, his ex-wife and his brother, they were living happily on earth, enjoying Vicente's own money. And then we see that Andrea Luis get a little carried away, and he was having trouble understanding how those criminals could be still living a good life. And then we finish chapter 4 with Vicente telling him very calmly that one day they will reap what they have sowed. And this way we finish chapter 4. You guys can go ahead.
So start the chapter 5, receiving instructions. Telesphore, a former minister of communication at the Smith, calling out in the on earth. Of mail in the ship instructions, as well as many others who are preparing themselves for full missions on Earth. Our division has been faced with a huge task. We need to spread new teachings for those who live here and help those who are facing the planet's deep changes. The human minds are open to contact with the invisible reality as kind of evolution. There is no going back. We must help incarnate, although lots of waves are working against our fraternal corporation, even many other spiritualist schools that still think human can become perfect overnight without any effort at progress. After all, isn't our individual work, but a freedom movement of human consciousness in favor of the religious idea in the world. Many religions still don't understand that they shouldn't spread that mad people go to hell. Instead, they must share that those people create our personal hell. Most on Earth are not ready for evolutionary events nowadays. Although science is booming on the planet and nature's secrets are discovered, lots of atrocities and now diseases are invading human homes. Humans keep resonating with this physical vibration spheres of billions of disincarnate who are still living on the planet's surface. Faith and revenge are a basic expression of divine realization. But work is the fundamental need for every spirit. Humankind starts a process of readjustment and redemption. We need to offer instruments for understand the spiritual Christ. But we need co-workers who don't pay attention to conditions, compensations, or discussions, but self-denial and sacrifice. So this chapter, comments, guys? No? Go ahead. Chapter 6, profound warnings. So the last four lectures keeps going on and say other colonies on our plane are involved in providing service in the same nature. However, once on Earth, very few incarnates remember the eternal reality. Into the fluids of meaty clothes, great instructors become lost of human conflict. They forget that Jesus didn't expect human beings get his love level or become like him. Instead, he came down to the human plane in order to love, teach, and service, to help us right. If the left ask, if the divine master adopted this rule, what should he say? Earth Earth is a physical redemption workshop to prepare us to work together, forgetting the mistakes of the past. The main failure of mediumistic work is a lack of sense of responsibility. Why mediums fail? The hard work is a divine gift. However, you choose the easy life. The Ministry of Communication is behind this renewal movement. We need workers who are loyal to the spirit of the faith. Those who are afraid of learning through hard work will not be accepted. We have willing spirit and ministry of commissions into the world. Hope to have success in our to achieve the results we renounce and what is inferior. We have down to the lower plans to up to higher plans. And no one should expect to rise spirituality without effort, sweat, and tears. Telephorus ends his lecture many around crying silently. At this time, two women approached ask Aniceto about Octavio's case. So next chapter 7 about Otávio's downfall. Comments, guy? No?
Sure. Why not? Maybe like a little breather here.
Go ahead.
So, you made a comment, Chris, about when we hit bottom, we go to that place of darkness. I think Jean too in the first chapters. That's an opportunity for us to climb up, right? So it's a good thing. Um, and it's almost like I know there's several chapters here that talk about like being in a school. And it is nice. I think I don't know if this happens. It's nice when we get free days at school, but after a while, when it's like free all the time, it could get a little bit boring. We don't realize that we actually do like to work the challenge. I've heard this from even from 12-year-olds. They're like, the last week, oh, it's so boring. We need to work. And I think that's how we are too. We are built, and almost like the spiritual DNA. Like we have that in us. We just kind of have to come in terms with it. Maybe some people are so afraid. I know I sometimes, oh, I hear the word discipline, and it could be scary, but it's actually not that bad. It is a beautiful gift to be able to find something in life to appreciate Earth as this beautiful school and not this horrible place because I'm just throwing out thoughts. Wrong?
Yes, no, no. I think you said a very nice thing here. In the Spirit's book, there is a question asking where are in our when it comes to our whole personality, our whole beings, where are in those terms the laws of God? And the Spirit's book answers telling that it's in our conscious. So we see that it's in our deepest conscious, in our deepest reminiscence. And the progress is the law. So when we are like not doing anything, when we're stopped, when we are not having goals in our life, we do feel that something is missing. We do feel that because it's in our nature. Our spirits are built that way to work, to serve. And when we discover that loving is working, and when we discover that this work in terms of serving one another, serving those that are in deep suffer, this actually brings us help and happiness. We find a very special path to go away.
Beautiful.
So, so go ahead. Chapter 7, Otávio's downfall. Waited to learn a little bit. Andrea interested in Otávio's case. After Otávio tells about his case, saying, "On earth, I have received a that is a then I had lovely feel they made message full of love, slave to dance and vanity. Many in this area of faith may allege incapable. However, the clergy have no excuse. The same applies to mediums. After they've carried depths in the cold life, I choose not help for books who worked with me for the next 30 years. I prepared the return to Earth to work as medium, wishing to end up my debts. The folks in the Ministry of Communication did all they could, and 6 spiritual friends went to help me. Technicians from the Ministry of Assistance accompanied to Earth on the day before my rebirth. I would be among the spiritual works in Brazil. I was supposed to get married, not because it might interfere with my mediumship, but my own case demanded. At the age of 20, I would be welcome into my life of, at the age of 20, I would welcome into my life as orphans 6 friends who had worked so hard for me in Oslar. I was indebted to these spirits, and it would only be redemption for me, but also it would be a guarantee of victory through my work. Such a demand way of life, you keep me out from the great ideas about sex inhibitions. But too bad, I forgot about every single of my comments. My mother was incarnate when I was 13. My father remarried, and I got very rebellious and complained all the time. So relatives took me to spirit center to have orientation my use. It guides critic what they did. The spiritual friends me a lot, but in my vanity, I up to them. I interested of sorry. I searched a doctor who told me that I need sex. Had the, so I had just turned 20 when my father was dead, and six children were orphaned because sorry. I had just turned 20 when my father was dead, and six children were offered because when my mother married my father, she brought three little ones on the guardianship. After 2 years, my stepmother was taken to a lepton, and I had abandoned the little forever without home. Generally, those friends from North that I was debited because no start really of the most, but get my day more being adept at spiritual accomplishments became more difficult. The tragedy that I have created on my own torment is still with my wife, that I married only for love to propose. She was far she was far from the spiritual level. My spirit, she was far from my spiritual level. She was bound to monster spirit and they attracted him as my son to unwanted pregnancy. Both tormented to the end of my days, and I turned here at the age of 40, consumed my syphilis, alcohol, and financial problems. So, a tragedy. Comments, guy? No. Chapter 8. Okay. Chapter 8, Acelino's tragedy, another tragedy. In this time, Acelino approached me upbeat, saying, Ah, João, please, do you comment?
I would just say that we have seen loads of mediums here in Brazil that have fallen. We have like loads of examples of guys that start this beautiful work in mediumship, and then unfortunately we see them falling. This is become very common here in Brazil, and it's actually very sad.
Yes, it's so is Easter of so yes, I found. Chapter 8, Acelino's tragedy. In this time, Acelino approached upbeat saying, You lost the match because you didn't even play. However, I lost it by playing disastrously. I spent 11 years in lower zones Even so, I trust in providence. I also left Nosso Lar during the last century. One hour our Minister of Communications praised personally my new task in planning in order to work in our colony in one of the largest cities in Brazil. I married with Ruth, that took upon herself to work with me to accomplish our task more easily. After finishing the first part of the plan at age 20, I was called majors work and received tremendous support from invisible benefactors. I still remember the serious satisfaction of my colleagues in our study group. I had clairvoyant and clairaudient and psychographic factors to the work what I have planned. However, I was inclined to turn my factors into a source of material income. I wasn't wait for what Lord would give me after my work, so I looked to solve my own financial problem. I decided to change for I decided to charge for concessions with my special rates for the poor people. My my consultation room were full. People to involve into the material of a large families as they are the problem. High spiritual, the rebellion teachings my I surround with criminal and the inferior vibration of my terrible clients had put me in the dark side hole. I've ridiculous the gospel of our Master Jesus, overlook the fact that illicit business are liked with evil spirits, who, on the invisible plans, show an interest shut business. I had turned my mediumship into a source of materialship advice. But that came and took me out from my illusion. At the moment of the transition, the troop of criminal clients who had death before me demanded suggested guidance of law theory. They wanted knew about incarnate and about business results. I was linked to them by sinister mental chains because of my spiritual negligence. I spent 11 years with my wrongdoings. So, lots of teachers here. You have to think better when we start developing our leadership because it's so hard and so difficult. The
Can I
chapters end.
can, can I make a comment here before we go
Yeah.
further? Just to always remember when it comes to exercising mediumship, there is a text in the Bible. This is the New International Version. I'm gonna read it very quickly here. It's on Matthew chapter 10, verse 8. Heal those who are ill, raise the no, I'm sorry. Heal those who are ill, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. So, charging for mediumship is something that has become very common here in Brazil. Again, it has become very common, and we have Jesus Himself telling us that we should not charge for mediumship gifts. This is very wrong, and a very important warning that we leave here today, among us those other lessons, is that don't go for mediums that are charging for their gifts, because you won't find anything good. And you guys, if you go for those people, you may hurt yourselves very badly, because it's very wrong.
I think here in the States, this is this is something that we still don't really talk so much. I think as in Brazil about mediumship, but we do have a couple of mediums that are, out there, and it's true. Sometimes um, you often wonder, if they gave a little bit more of themselves without that, how much more people could be helped that perhaps might not be able to afford, certain things and stuff. So yeah, there's always that those thoughts, because I know here in the States we just have it. It's a different name. I think our friends and I, as we were talking, it's there's a lot of knowledge here too in the US, but it's just different. And I think now it's with the spiritism, it is helping and to bring it um to the same terminology, but we've had it here. So but it's tough. I think it's tough because maybe also, awareness is so important, and so maybe sometimes um, they might not be aware, but in the next chapters, when we do go in their spiritual state, they will become aware, because we have a bunch of case studies where they do go back. They're like, oh my God. Yeah. Chris.
So I finished my
Okay. I think you froze the hair. I think you froze, Chris. Would it be okay if I move forward? Yes. Okay, guys.
I
So
think
that's
so, yes.
what?
awesome. You froze, my dear.
Ah, yes, I finished the 8. Sorry.
It's okay. That's thank you so much. It was beautiful because it leads right into the next topic, which is several case studies of mediums um, who come into terms. So now they're, of course, in that on the other side. And I took notes because I know I can talk a lot. We'll start with Mariana. So chapter 9, we have Mariana, Ernestina, and then we're gonna have another man that we're gonna call him John Doe, because I couldn't find his name here. Okay. And interestingly, it's talking now about something that I think is very real, which is like when we have our partners, sometimes it's very difficult. Like maybe one is a spiritist, one is not. And so these mediums kind of had to juggle that in their life, which I think it's something that happens a lot. Um, and even not, even if you're not a medium, but you're a lot like, in the spiritist center or hear cardiac radio or different studies, because we do have to take time every day set aside. Like, how do we juggle all of that? And Mariana, which was the first one, she said, I had problems with my husband, so I couldn't help, right? And then she was struggling, and she just couldn't stand the opinion of the different point of view, because her husband had a different perspective on spirituality. And so the thing we hear that she's coming into realization is that, hey, maybe you could have worked in silence, right? Because you have done something, in little things sometimes too. Like if we find ourselves in situation, even if it's a little bit, like you said, it's something. It's to not be stagnant with such a gift, because as we see in this conversation, all of them before coming, they were prepared. So when these mediums are going to come to earth, they're giving tools, they're giving relationships, they're giving a lot of things beforehand. And that's where like they're like, oh man, um, which I think is important to understand that now these guys have already come to that realization, that they did wrong, and or could have done better. I don't like to use that, but they could have done a lot better. Okay, I prefer that. Then we have Ernestina, and Ernestina was all about friendships, right? Like, she had a problem trusting, she didn't trust, and so she wasn't making genuine connections. And we know, like in the Spirit's book, the law of society, we are built to progress with each other. And so this was an opportunity for her to help use the mediumship and do all that. And she couldn't. She came up, I ended up deceiving like myself in all of this. I could have done this. And then we have a brother there. I name him John Doe. And now he's talking about his wife también. I mean, also, right, that didn't give him support. And he, in his case study, what Andre was trying to help us understand is do we know the signs of compliance, right? Could he be able to serve um, alone? Why is this codependency that he had, that I can't do it on my own, right? Which I was like, okay, this is something that I think about too. I'm gonna step for a little bit and say that in my previous relationship, this was very difficult because we did have different beliefs, and I knew that this is the path that I wanted to take, and we had to do a lot of compromising to come into terms with that. But it was hard. So I do want to say, Mariana and Estina and the brother here, it is very difficult. But maybe I think it was the intention that they were lacking. They could have tried harder. So that's the thing. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that chapter.
I think that a very important thing that we need to think when it comes to being a spiritist and being a father, being a husband, and this marital complex situation that comes along. Um, the main thing is not such different beliefs, but if you guys both are doing the good, because the thing is about the vibration. Because if your partners is in a lower vibration, bad spirits will have access to your life. That's the main thing here. If your partner is not going to church, but he is still being a good person, he's a Christian, even though he doesn't say that he's a Christian or her, bad spirits won't have access to your life. So at the end of the day, this belief in spiritism won't matter. But being married is actually, and we need to think that it's actually a very, very sophisticated, complex, and important part of our lives. So when it comes to choosing a husband or a wife, we need to think a lot because it's a huge compromise, especially in spiritual terms.
Absolutely. It's a tough conversation, but it's good to have these talks. It's real talk. I think it is. It's tough. In chapter 10,
We
it's
have
the same.
to learn.
I just raised my hand so my hand so Chris could talk. Go
So
ahead, bro.
mediums have to learn feel more than think. Our heart, our is our lighthouse. You have to learn to feel more than think.
Beautiful. I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So we continue chapter 10. And it's the same thing pretty much. Now we're talking about our brother Joel. And he was also a medium. And he pretty much uses his mediumship for a personal agenda. And so we don't have a lot of time to go in detail, but we can kind of break this down. So I know there is a balance, and maybe we can substitute mediumship for, it doesn't necessarily need to be the one where you're like speaking to spirits and stuff. There's different types of mediumship. So it's just a gift that we offer in this setting, or so forth. And we do have to distinguish between, okay, am I being selfish, or is there parts of me that I have to like grow? And when we looked at Joel, the thing here that he needed to balance was that there was not giving, as Ron and Chris mentioned in their chapters. It's a gift to be of service. And so, inside, and they know, because they mention a lot that because they have that gift, they're able to communicate and have that ability. So he knew that the direction where he was heading was not of balance. We always have to like find that balance, because there's nothing wrong for us to, you know, to use. I mean, I would say like even to take a course, that in itself is something that you're doing for yourself, not necessarily, right? But then you're gonna use that knowledge to then give back. You see what I'm saying, or something like that. I don't know if I'm making sense, but just to find that balance when we're doing that. Chapter 11 and talks about Bellarmino, and his is really, really it's a really good story, because now he has support from his wife, Elisa or Eliza. I'm not sure, right? And so he has all the support, and he's saying that he
Lisa.
was Eliza. Okay, Eliza. And Eliza was very patient with him and so forth. And he had a special gift. And he knew he needed to be an instructor, right? And he, instead of him being genuine and giving as an instructor, he was not using that for the good. Okay, so we go again, these decisions that he's making. And so the question for us in this is, okay, um, think of ourselves of as instructors in real life. What is our roles in that, right? Like if you're a parent, if you're, you can a friend, a partner at work, even if you're a teacher, we take so many roles as instructors. And Bellarmino was kind of reminding us to not be selfish, but to really give of ourselves. And say, how are we utilizing this gift? Let's look at Jesus. And so here they're reminding us of looking at Jesus as one of the best teachers. I don't know if Jean or Chris want to expand on that. We're good? Okay. Awesome. And then the last one, which is chapter 12. In chapter 12 talks about Monteiro. And Monteiro is this this guy, which I thought was interesting with his case study, because he does everything that he needs to do, right? Like on the surface, he's doing what he needs to do. So apparently he is, but he's kind of missing the point, because it's almost like he's pointing at others, but he never really looks at himself. So while um, he's there were some examples here, if you don't mind me kind of looking at it. Like for instance, he would say, I would open the windows of the classroom and harp at the children who were playing innocently on the street, right? Um, as he wasn't being honest. I preached to troubled discarnates, but then seconds later, I would scold at a humble woman at a meeting, right? Because she was like, I guess, oh, I have a sick child. And so he had a lot of these things where, like, he wasn't being genuine. So he would tell others, but he never looked at himself. And that's where, he says here, I forgot about myself. So this was so important, especially if you're a medium, or in any case, we need to make sure that we're also filling our cups, that we're studying, we're introspecting ourselves. I know like Louis Hay was big on that, to always re-energize, right? And we know that Jesus did that too as well. He would go on prayers, and he would do so many things to self-care. And it's so important to, there's so many lessons with Monteiro, like to not project our things onto others, or to not deflect, um, but to be like Jesus, because this is the last phrase. You surrendered yourself excessively to practical spiritism with humans, our brothers and sisters, but you never interested in practicing true spiritism with Jesus, our master. So that's the thought here. As servants, Remember, the ultimate goal is to be at that vibration of Jesus, which is a vibration of love, of charity, to be gentle, and to be genuine, and it's okay, I think, to make it is, we are here, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. So the whole idea is not to discourage us, but it's really to say, what are the intentions? All these case studies, as we read them, they realize that their intention was on the wrong focus. They lost themselves, whether through fear, too selfish, they ignored it, they were just, they didn't want to, they didn't want to work hard, as no Chris had mentioned. So it's really, really nice reminder to just, how to say, just give it your best, give it your all. That right here, as Chris said, that hard intention, my gosh, that you can't go wrong with that. I don't think so. I think that's what I can say from there. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
A very important thing when we see all those mediums talking about their experience. Um, in the medium's book, Karnak brings
Yeah,
us a very, very important affirmation, which is the right way of exercising the mediumship is the Christian way. And being a Christian is essentially being humble. And here in Brazil, what we have seen when it comes to mediums that become famous and very known in all over the country is that they lose the humility,
Mm.
and that's a very, very sad and dangerous path. And a nice thing for us to think is that the mediums, they are not the spirits. They aren't the spirits. The spirits are those who are healing, who are bringing good things, who are foreseeing the future. And that's even an interesting approach to spiritism. Kardec is not the spirits. The spiritism is a doctrine that is taught and that is brought for us from and by the spirits. They are the ones that have this amazing power. And when it comes to power, healing, making miracles, cleaning leprosy, making those blind people see again, it's all about Jesus Christ. And those mediums who go far away from Jesus, they won't be able to do those things. Of course, bad spirits, they can tell a couple of things. They can say a thing or two. They can even appear like an honest and intelligent person spirit, but they will not go far. And we need to be very close to Jesus. That's why we're here. I don't know, Chris. Do you wanna say something, bro? I feel like I cut you off.
yeah,
I talk too much.
It's beautiful.
yeah. No, love is always the answer. And if Otto had used his heart, problem he wouldn't have left his 6 friends of Nosala go. You know, you have to learn use our heart, our love.
Yeah, and like you said, it takes going. A lot of these case studies, they have to go down before they can go up, and that's the thing, which is part of the learning process, and
Yes.
John, I know, like, I mean, being from here, we don't really talk about mediumship, um, and when we are reading the mediums book, my gosh, there's so much information as to how you can tell the difference between, like, a spirit that is like that, from coming from that Jesus vibration, that good intention, versus some that are not, and I think the key word here is to be educating ourselves, and I think that that's coming here to the States, and it's gonna grow. I mean, more and more. That's the
Yes, yes, totally. There are two important things about about what you just said. First, studying. We do need to study study. This is very important. But the second part, which is practicing what we have studied, this is the most important part. And another thing that we have seen here is loads of people that have studied a lot and they become as well full of vanity because they know more. They think they know more. And we do see loads of cases like that and in the spiritist movement, which is another thing that's very sad. So I don't know. Do you guys want to say something else before we say bye?
We could say hello to some people. I don't know. I know we said hello to Vanessa. Hello,
Is Vanessa
Elaine.
here?
Just
Well,
thank you a lot.
yeah. Hello, Elaine. Good night. Hello, Narciso. John De Rosa.
Okay.
Marisa
Okay. I can see
Gabriela.
that.
Rodrigo Silva. And hey, Miss Carol. How are
Oh,
you, sister? Thank you. Just thank you guys so much.
Yes. Hey everybody.
thank
Thank you
you
guys
for
for being here with us. So we're gonna finish here and save. Everybody that hasn't been watching live video can watch it later. I want one more time thank my dear friends Nora and Chris for being here with us in this. We have this whole year ahead of us, loads of books, loads of chapters. I thank you guys so much for having accepted, for having so always compromised with the study. Thank you so much. Do you guys want to say something before we end the video?
no,
Chris?
just thank you. Thank you for
Okay,
having me. Thank you for watching.
thank you so much.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you next week Wednesday. Bye, my friends.